And the funny thing about this is that there's only 7 slides on there anyway, so we don't even need it. I think it's time to begin. Thank you for coming and staying at this time on a Wednesday afternoon in beautiful Winston-Salem. My name is Paul Clifford. I'm the president of Davenport Group. Some of you know me as the guy who gets away with TVs on Friday. The rest of you going, what's he talking about? But we also, for those who are here at the end, and I know you got to stay, we're going to give one away here too. So for just those in the room. It's the only way I get people to come listen. What we're going to talk about is something that I found, I think it's interesting because my role over time has been changing. Davenport Group, for those of you who don't know, we are a term VAR, value-added reseller, but that's what we are. And we've focused and built our business around helping customers gain control over data. Really, it started in 2001 selling storage area networks. And we've come out from that to do lots of things. But as we continue to grow, I get more and more time to see what's going on in the industry. Because I know you guys don't get that much time to know what's going on in the industry because you're trying to keep things running. And it's pretty hard to pull your head up to see what's going on, so that's kind of what I get to do anymore. Because I'm still the dumbest guy in the room, because the folks who run stuff know a lot more than I do. But I do get to come in with, hey, here's the bright, shiny new object every now and again. And one of the things that I've been noticing and been spending a lot of time looking at is the state of the network. So that's what we're going to chat about. Okay? So that tells you whether or not you're in the right room. And there's a TV at the end. So, and as I was telling somebody earlier, this may not have any information of value to you the entire time, but hopefully you won't be bored, and there's a TV. So, yeah. Not for each participant, unfortunately.
How do you give a TV away every Friday? So you said at the beginning of your presentation?
Yeah.
Why now?
At NCLGISA. Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah. So, been doing that for 11 years now, isn't it, Rex? Yeah. So, anyway, we're a huge supporter of NCLGISA, which is where that comes to. And if you come on Friday, you'll get to hear why I think that, because they actually give you the microphone. But if there is a single word that describes IT, I think that word is change. Everything that we touch on a daily basis in the world of IT, every aspect of everything we're doing is changing and changing at incredible rates. Whether it's the silicon, whether it's the bus, whether it's the firmware, whether it's the software, whether it's a new device, upgrade of this or whatever, the user base, the devices, everything is in constant change, tremendous change. And I don't think we manage technology anymore. I think our jobs are to manage change. I think it's a key element, because if we can't manage change, nothing's going to work. But one thing hasn't changed over the years, and that's the basic computing model. CPU, memory, I/O, bus, binary transmissions of ones and zeros, network, processor, storage. It's the same. 40 years ago, we had to have all these things in one box to deliver an application. Today, because of network really extending the bus, we can put these elements almost anywhere we want to solve almost any problem we want, or we can put them in one box in one room. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Apollo 13. It's one of my favorites for a lot of different reasons, but it's about the failed moonshot in 1970, excuse me, where they had an oxygen tank explode and they had to turn around and come back and whatever. But there's a scene in there where Jim Lovell, who was played by Tom Hanks, is giving a tour at one of the facilities. And he said, we live in an amazing time. Standing in front of you is this Saturn V rocket, which will take us to the moon, this monstrous thing the size of a building. And we've also been living in an age where a computer fits in a single room. Think of Steve Jobs' vision in the early 80s. was to put a computer in every home. It was just not that long ago. And today, we're all walking around with computers in our pockets. They're in our cars, they're in our toasters. It's an incredible era that we're living in of enormous change that needs to be dealt with. Now, if you look back into the 70s and to the 80s, during the period where if we had to deliver a mission-critical application, it sat on a mainframe, right? In that mainframe, we had a data center-centric architecture where we had everything buttoned down, secure, taken care of, everything ran all of the time. We had policies and procedures, we had it buttoned down, secure. Now, change was not easy and was not expensive, but it was mission critical, so we did it. Fast forward to the 90s. Client server hit us. Client server destroyed all those policies and procedures, all those rules. Data was running amok. It was all over the place, but our organizations were lined up by operating systems. We had numerous operating systems, multiple types of hardware, and we had to manage all of this and keep it all available. During that time, it was a picture of not of high availability, but of high maintenance. Then we moved into the data-centric era with virtualization, and things have changed again. But the point I'm trying to make is that it's all changing, and the rates of change are tremendous. Now, I was speaking to I get a chance to talk often, and I had a reporter for a trade rag contact me about a month or so ago, and he was doing an article on disruption. And he said, so Paul, tell me, what do you see as the technologies today or companies that are disruptive in today's environment? I said, well, I think the last truly disruptive technology was virtualization brought in by VMware. So that truly disrupted an entire industry, and we all shifted directions to be able to manage all of them. I said, but I think you're coming at it the wrong way. I don't think it's technology or technologies or companies that are disruptive. What's truly disruptive is the data and the incredible growth of data. It's just, it's enormous. What do I mean by that? Well, to give you a couple of examples, we're all aware of all of this, but a couple of examples. I have a customer who 8 years ago bought a storage area network. 2.4 terabyte sync. And very smart, very talented, and he was going, this all makes sense. I'm really glad we're heading in this direction. I know this is going to work the way we want it to. He said, but I think you're overselling it. I don't know what I'm going to do with all that space. Today, that customer has multiple storage area networks and manages over 250 terabytes of space. Now, we're all going, yeah, okay, yeah, I get that. But the point I'm trying to make is in 8 years, we moved the decimal, not just once, but twice. We moved the decimal twice. It's enormous growth. I saw a study just a short while ago that said that in the last 3 years, we have generated more data than in the entire history of human existence. Think about that. Okay? And does anybody think this is going to go away? We are graduating from college today, an entire generation that have been digital since birth that are entering the workforce. This is going to, it's not going to stop. And each one of these ones and zeros has got to be tended to, secured, backed up, restored, part of a disaster recovery plan. It's got to be processed. It's got to go through a network multiple times in multiple directions. It's not slowing down. It's an enormous pressure that is being put on us to manage this. And It's like a never-ending tsunami. I mean, think about it. It's coming, but it's not stopping, and it's getting bigger. And every piece in there has to be dealt with. So, what does this mean for the role of IT? What does this mean to you? Well, in 90% of IT environments, IT is a cost center. And in government, it's 100% cost centers. I have yet to walk into a customer's environment over the last 15 years of doing this, where the customer says, you know what, I got money falling out of my pockets and I got too many people. It's not the case. It's just not the case. We are working very hard just to stay in place, let alone get ready for what's next. Prepare ourselves for where we need to go. It's an enormous pressure. And when we go for more money, what happens? Well, we tell them, we put out a great presentation, we show them all the reasons, the dramatic needs that I need this $200,000. And their eyes glass over and they say, can you do it for 100? So we make do with less again. We make do with less again. That's the nature of IT, with the never-ending tsunami on its way. Okay? I believe that the hardest job out there today is that of CIO. You've got to manage all these factors and deliver a never-ending service. Okay? That's tough to handle. I saw another study, I had a little time on airplanes recently, so I saw another study that said this: in 3 years, only 47% of current CIOs will still have their job. That's a tough job. And that's not because of promotions, by the way. Also, in that same study, it said that only less than a third of CIOs are involved in the strategic decisions of their entity. They're not at the table. They're told what to do. They're the geeks. They're not involved in the decision-making process. That's because of the fact that it's cost-centered and it's difficult. One of my customers in Oklahoma, they are the single largest bank in the state of Oklahoma. We were having coffee, and I asked him what keeps him up at night. I asked everybody that, because I'm really interested in that. So what keeps him up at night? You know what he said? He said, I don't want to see my face on the front page of the New York Times next week. Security. It's the number one thing. He says, yeah, we handle all the other stuff pretty well. He said, in security, he goes, we do as well as we can. And I got good people. I make sure we keep the money up. He said, you know, it's time bomb. Sometimes something's going to happen. I said, well, how come you've been successful to this point? He goes, I haven't been successful. I've been lucky. I said, why is that? He said, I'm not attractive enough as a target. That's a pretty scary situation to be in. Pretty scary situation to be in. Think of our friends just south of the border, the Department of Revenue in South Carolina, what happened to them a couple of years ago. And this last week, if you saw it on the news, I saw it not last night, I guess it was, that hackers are threatening to release the personal identification and name of a station chief of the CIA. How'd they get that stuff? If they get into those places, the threats are real, the environments we're dealing with are difficult. So, if we think about all of this, what are vendors doing to bring us answers and solutions? Because that's where we tend to look, because they have to come up with the ideas and to go out and make money and make the businesses work. What are they coming up with? Well, we've come up with virtualization, convergence, cloud, and software-defined fill in the blank. Okay? Those are pieces that we're seeing coming to play. So what's the solution? What do we do? How do we manage this pile that's coming at us so we can actually get ready for what's next? We can get ready for the future. I mean, I think about it from your position as IT in government. It's not just a job in the data center. You have an obligation to your constituents to protect their information. It's an obligation. They have no idea what you're doing behind the walls, but they have an expectation. And it's a real one. And it's what we have to do. So what's happening from this perspective? I believe the solution is very straightforward. I think it's hard, but it is simple. And that is, we need to simplify our environments. We need to simplify. Who in this room needs another thing in the stack? We need another one? Of course not. It's time to simplify as the ones and zeros continue to magnify on top of us. So how do we simplify? How do we do it? The answer is virtualization. It's virtualization, true virtualization. Now we're all aware of server virtualization, where I put the VMs onto a single machine, multiple VMs on a single machine. But that's just a piece of it. I remember the day not that long ago where I'd walk into a data center and there'd be 30 servers in the rack, all humming along at 6% utilization, and they're going to be buying another 15 machines that year. That's why we jumped onto this virtualization bandwagon, because that made perfect sense. But there's a lot of different definitions of virtualization, and I'll give you the only one that matters, which is mine. Virtualization is the liberation of data and software, management and control. It's the liberation of those elements from hardware so that I can cut and paste and drag and drop anything, anytime, without any disruption. And my hardware becomes what it's supposed to be, horsepower that can be replaced at a commodity price. That's virtualization. How are we doing as an industry? Well, server virtualization, that's humming along. It's not only VMware, there's multiple players in that, and doing a fine job. On the storage side, we virtualize storage. In fact, those of you who know what I do for a living know that Compellent was the first truly virtual storage device where we actually virtualize the storage environment down to the blocks so that we can move them around and do whatever we want to do. So storage is virtualized. Our processors are virtualized. What about the network? Do we have a virtual network? We hear the words every now and again, but do we have one? No, we really don't. And the reason? I believe the reason for that is Cisco. Cisco is the 800-pound gorilla that has earned the right to be the 800-pound gorilla because they do things exceptionally well. Now, if anybody in here thinks I'm going to throw a rock at Cisco, you're sadly mistaken. Cisco is an exceptional company built by one of the finest individuals on the planet, John Chambers. His people totally adore him, the communities love him, and his customers are fans of him. So I'm not here to cast any aspersions at Cisco. Cisco is a pioneer that is now a legacy vendor. Legacy is not a negative term. Legacy vendors are the ones who were pioneers that built their customer base. But Cisco is built on proprietary hardware and their software. And this stuff works. That's why we buy it. What, a customer stupid? They're writing all these checks? No, it works. It's complex, it's complicated, it's hard. That's why we have the certification. I found out how hard when I started my CCNA study. And this stuff is, I'm working at it. Okay, I'm working at it. But Cisco's proprietary approach is also expensive. Anybody who's received a SmartNet bill or gone from Catalyst to Nexus knows what I'm talking about. But we do it because it works, and they're an exceptional company. But that's why we are where we are. So, big fan of Dell at Davenport. We jumped on board fully about 6 years ago because we understood the vision of Michael Dell. Michael Dell, 7 years ago, came to the realization that his future of his company was not PCs. Now, he wasn't going to get out of PCs. That's the legacy that he's built. He became the 17th richest man on the planet doing this. You're not getting rid of PCs. But the future of Dell is not going to be PCs. So what he did is he assembled the smartest minds on the planet. Because he can do that. I get some smart folks in the room, but I can't get the folks he can get. And he happens to be one of them, by the way. And he asked him a simple question. What should IT be? What should IT look like? What is it supposed to be? Not what can we build or what can we buy. What's it supposed to be? And when that was done, he walked up to the table and plunked down $18 billion and said, let's go. And what happened at that moment was probably one of the most innovative, well-financed, well-backed, intellectually infused startup in the tech industry surrounded by a $60 billion company. Now, since that time, there's been over 30 some odd acquisitions of companies and technologies. Not to get a new backup product. He didn't buy Aperture because it's a great backup product, which it is. He bought it for the intellectual property and how it fit that vision of what they were trying to build. So, then, as the product line is fully coming together, 2 years ago, he walks to the table and realizes that he's got a company that was a manufacturer of boxes. And that's how the entire company was built. And it did pretty well. But that's how the company was built. So he wanted to retransform, it's really a word. He wanted to transform the company to match the vision. So he plunked down another $25 billion to take the company private, to restructure the company to match the vision. I don't know if you heard last week, he plunked down $67 billion in IDMC. You paying attention yet? Is it serious? The vision of Dell is incredible. That's why we're part of it, why we want to be part of it, and where it's going. One of those acquisitions, I can talk about a lot of them. One of those acquisitions is a company called Force 10. I had never heard of Force 10. Never heard of this. Well, what I came to understand was that they had a few customers that were a little interesting. In Europe, there was a customer called CERN. In the United States, Facebook, Twitter, Google, all had at the core Force 10. Now, these are entities that have literally unlimited resources when it comes to IT, both financially and intellectually. And in the case of Google, if they don't like something, they go build it. Interesting. So what's happened is Michael has been committed from the beginning of all this that anything in IT is supposed to be open. Open, not proprietary silicon. Merchant silicon. Open, so that anything can run on anything. It's part of this vision. Force 10. I had a really smart guy. I said, so tell me about how does this thing work? Well, the simplest way to think of it is take the Cisco 3-tier model, collapse it to 2, and then put all the intelligence in the switches and massive throughput and switching. Simple. That's it. Boom. Kind of the way it's supposed to be. So today, I should probably get to the slide. Yeah, I should probably get to the slide. Okay. There we go. Force 10, now called Dell Networking. This is what Gartner has to say. This came out in April 2015. Okay, my slide went over. Dell has emerged as a top 4 player in the data center networking space, measured by port shipments. In other words, they are moving some. They're number 4 in boxes moved, ports shipped. It has also been the most innovative and most disruptive mainstream data center networking vendor in the market over the past 12 months. If you understand how Gartner works, this way is innovative, innovation, creative. That way is what you sell. That's what Dell is. You didn't know that, did you? I like the silence. If you haven't figured it out, I like doing this. Okay. So the Dell line, I'm not going to give you a sales presentation, but I just want to show you what we've got a bunch of bunch of boxes. Because that's what it's supposed to be, a box is ports, throughput. But one of these things, 32 100 gig ports. 32 100 gig ports. That's some serious throughput. This is the entire line. Oh, by the way, you can buy them today. This isn't a future slide. You can buy them today. And the whole premise of this product line is that open means open. You can run that Force 10, or excuse me, the Dell network operating system. But Cumulus, Big Switch, Infusion, OpenStack, Pluribus, and VMware. Run them all. Run what you want. That's open. Liberation from hardware. Horsepower in the hardware, delivered at a Dell price. Now, one of these partners, VMware, has a very interesting solution set. I love how they've come at the network. Okay? What they've done in the servers, now taken to network. What does that mean? It's the integration, making it all work together. One of the key elements, is if you deploy a new solution today, then you've got to get to the network folks, and I need some VLANs, I need you to, and a couple weeks later you get them. Now, it's not because they're not good at what they do, it's just this stuff is not easy, and there's a lot of stuff to go on. The automation, when these things are put together, what you do in minutes used to take you weeks. Interesting. So, we start off by putting in our network hardware. We bring in our compute hardware and capacity. And then we lay on it the virtualization layer of VMware. So that now everything is running together with the final piece, the network hypervisor. You all understand what a hypervisor is today. 5 years ago I was giving classes on hypervisors. I don't have to do that today. But a network hypervisor, taking control and pushing the intelligence to the devices with complete and total control over what I'm doing. And it's not hard. I don't have to get down to the command line. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how we've done it. We don't have to do that anymore. The simplicity and the approach that VMware brought to servers, it brought to everything. And now it's one contained, simple to deploy environment. I'm liking this. Anybody else? Am I the only one in here having any fun? And there's a TV. There's a TV. What also then happens, I forgot the last picture, is that we get into building then the virtual VLANs and containers and building what I need and keeping it where I want it. Because the next picture is one that I want to talk about. Security. It's the one thing none of you want to talk about. It was like about 5 years ago. Nobody wanted to talk about backup. Because, yeah, we got a policy and procedure, we got it all working. The auditors have checked the box, but I don't ever want to pull this stuff back. The Lord knows it won't work. Right? It's the security. So how secure is your network? Well, it's really good. You know, when we haven't had anybody in there. Because what we do today is we put up this firewall. We build a castle and dig a huge moat and put barbed wire and landmines and put archers in the to try to keep them out. That's what we do. I could say how well is it working because I could point to the CIA. I mean, we got numerous examples. I heard a hacker talk. It wasn't all that long ago, and he said, "I'm always going to win because I'm patient." The folks in IT, they're not patient. They don't have time to be patient. They're fixing printers. They're fixing emails. They're grabbing this. They're busier than all get out. They're trying to get to the updates and the patches, but you know what? I'll get in, and when I do, I'm patient. I sit, I explore, I look, find what I'm looking for. I know where it's at. Then I go grab it, slip out the back door, and they don't even know I was there. Make you feel real good, doesn't it? But when you think about, oh, here's a story. I love telling stories. Customer, 4 years ago, was telling me that they had gotten into their logs and they had a penetration event. They were trying to figure out what was going on. And they actually got some other people involved, and it came down that they found out that it was a foreign government trying to get into their environment. These people made golf clubs. You don't think they're going after everybody, everywhere, and government? You guys carry any important information inside your data centers? You know, the Russian mob is now the single most organized crime element ever in the history of the world. They make the mafia look like a bunch of Boy Scouts. And their cyber business is driving everything. Because they can make money on this stuff. And they're second only to the foreign governments, by the way. Again, I'm not trying to paint a picture of gloom and doom, but the traditional approach of just that firewalls doesn't get it done. What VMware does, it allows for micro-segmentation so that I can start building inside my firewalls, inside my environment, small canisters, if you will, of protection, isolation zones. So if they get past those firewalls, they're not getting anywhere else. Containments built into the core. And because it's working with VMware on the servers, it's all easy to manage, control, adjust, and look. This stuff matters today because we have a problem. If you talk to a CIO, any CIO only has 3 topics that they have time to talk about. That's it. And they really don't have time to talk about those 3, but they're the only 3 that can make the play. One is availability and performance. That's in the same bucket. Everything has to work all of the time with maximum throughput. All of the time. Because anything short of that is abject failure. Just is, right? So, that's 1. 2, cost. Constantly battling that cost issue. And the 3rd, security. That fills a CIO's plate. Here is a chance to start addressing all of it. Because the network is the last bastion of virtualization. It is needed. And Molly is doing the single most important thing of the day, which is passing out the things for the TV. So we're getting close. You're almost out of here. But here is an example that I ran across a couple of months ago. Everything's a couple of months ago. I guess I've been moving. Oops, I've been moving, so that's the reason for that. But I saw a customer environment. and was working with a customer. And they were looking at a Cisco redo of their world. And it was all Nexus with 1 year of SmartNet. And the price tag was $1.7 million. Okay. It's a good size number. $1.7 million. The Open Dell hardware solution with NSX with 3 years is $927,000. My purpose today is not to sell. I don't do that. Okay? It's to make you aware of where we are and where we need to go. Because we don't know what's next. We do know that the tsunami is still coming. It's not going to slow down. And we are, at best, running the place today. At best, running the place today. And what we need to do is simplify our environments and gain control so that we can adapt to change. Oh, that was another picture. Doesn't matter, it's the same. Oh, and the customary customer slide of NSX folks. And they're just a whole bunch of big names, and this is like a year old, so it's outdated. So, what I've been talking about is being able to address the issues that matter in IT today. Security, automation, combining, so that I don't have to wait for stuff. Keep moving, keep moving. Control over my environment and being able to be flexible. Turn hardware into what it's supposed to be. Something that can be replaced. Because have you ever experienced this? You got a new upgrade, a new system going in, whatever type, doesn't matter. I got this whole new system. And we get together, we get it processed, we get our implementation in, we move it, we get it all done. By the time we're up and running, and now I get to go talk about what we've done, the next generation's out the door. And you're already a generation behind. It's an insurance, but it's been this way for a long time. It's not going to change. That's not going to change because everything is changing. So we need to be flexible so that we cannot be tied to proprietary hardware anymore. Proprietary hardware is a problem. We got rid of it in the server market. We're getting rid of it in the storage market. We haven't done it yet in the network. But Dell, with the vision, is doing it and has done it. Everything I've talked to you about today is available today. These are not futures. You can do this now. And then all of that is yours. Give me something here. Can I get an amen out of somebody in this place?
Amen.
So, anybody got any questions? Because we're going to give away a TV set here in 2 minutes. Any questions? You want me to pontificate about Dell EMC?
What makes NSX open?
What makes NSX open is that it'll run on multiple hardware platforms, not just Dell. That's the openness. It can go where it needs to go. So that, literally, if you bought this solution from me, okay, and 3 years down the road you go, you know what? These guys are making some excellent open hardware. I'm going to put it on that. They're better than Dell today. You can move it with no disruption to your customer. That's wide open. That's how it's done.
How is it licensed?
How is it licensed? That's a discussion for outside of this room. Okay? Is it cheap? Not just cheap. You know, is it affordable? That's always in the eye of the beholder. But those are things that can be discussed. And part of it is, if you want to talk about any of this, track down Molly, track down myself, track down Rick. You know, we'd be more than happy to chat with you about it. At least explain it to you. I've got some friends from Dell that have arrived as well to make sure that I didn't trip over myself up here. And I appreciate you guys coming. But to end this thing on, pay attention to Michael Dell. Pay attention to Michael Dell. They just put together a $90 billion company, end to end, and the only company on the planet doing it, end to end, enterprise to the desktop. And it's built for tomorrow. And it's affordable at a Dell price. So Molly's passing those out. Well, she's getting the last ones out. 92% of the controlling stock. The voting stock. The stuff that matters. EMC owns 92% of that. That's now Dell. Michael Dell, and putting together this thing between Michael Dell, MSD Investments. MSD Investments is Michael Scott Dell, by the way. Silver Lake, and the others involved. They will own 70% of the stock of Dell. Michael Dell is the chairman and CEO of Dell and owns 70% of the stock of Dell. This is a force in the industry. You may want to pay attention. Whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, it has nothing to do with it. This is a force in the industry. Seriously. Molly, they're waiting because I'm going to have to start telling jokes here if we don't get this done. And that's just going to scare everybody out of the room. Yes, sir.
Are there other hardware platforms you know of that are compatible with the platform?
Are there
Other than Dell that?
Oh, yeah. And I'm not going to promote them, but yes, they do. Yes, they do. And nowhere near as powerful or affordable as that one. But you can do that research on your own, seriously. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think we're good.
We got everywhere. We got two more rows here.
Oh, first one.